Hello and welcome to Huddersfield Town's preview show ahead of tonight's Sky Bet Championship game against Sheffield Wednesday. To talk us through this Yorkshire derby, we have a number of star-studded journalists alongside us. Stephen Chicken from the Huddersfield Examiner, Dom Howson, who covers Sheffield Wednesday for Yorkshire Live, and the Yorkshire Post's football editor, Stuart Rayner. How are you all? You okay?
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Dom, we'll start with you. Obviously, Sheffield Wednesday, it's been a difficult but interesting season, I can imagine, from your point of view, reporting on them.
That's certainly one way of putting it, yeah. 3 victories in 16 matches, changing management, points deduction, and yeah, bottom of the table. So the only way is up, really.
Stu, how many times have you covered Sheffield Wednesday this year, and what have you made of them so far?
I've seen them a couple of times. To be honest, a few have been deceptive. I saw them in Bournemouth at Hillsborough, and as Dom will tell you, there's not been many wins at Hillsborough this year. But I did also see Tony Pulis' first game in charge away at Preston. Yeah, you can see Pulis has got a big job on his hands. You know, a pretty not the best squad in terms of what he wants to do with it. But you know, as usual, he's got them very well organised very quickly.
What does he want to do with it? What's he started to change? Obviously, he's been here for 5 games now.
So far, I'm changing formation immediately. So under Gary Monk, after the restart back in June, they switched to a back 3, and results, lack of goals, home victories continued. And so Tony Pulis straight away came in and went, he wants to go to a back 4. They don't really have the personnel to play it, though. They don't actually have a recognised level other than Matt Penn, who hasn't played for a few months. So that's where it's tricky, and this is where it's almost as if Wednesday are muddling through to get to January to then be able to strengthen the team in a number of areas, you know, and I think they'll be busy in January, and they need for start at least 1, if not 2 strikers. You know, that's so the top end of the pitch. That's where the big problems are. Defensively, their record is actually not too bad when you compare it to a lot of the teams in the Championship. And already what we've seen with Tony Pulis is that he's going to get them to be well organised and compact. And it's not going to be, I think, a lot of the time very pleasing on the eye, but he won't really care as long as he gets results to keep them in the division.
And Steve, obviously we're coming into this game off the back of a really strong Huddersfield Town performance against QPR, but Dom's just said it there, hasn't he? Tony Pulis' side, compact, well organised. This is a completely different kind of kettle of fish when you're considering Sheffield Wednesday and QPR. This is a real test of how far Huddersfield Town have come to try and break down those kind of systems.
Yeah, I think we've seen this season that they have struggled against, or at least in parts of games against likes of Birmingham and Preston and Cardiff, to break those teams down. I think probably Stoke was the one way he thought, okay, they might have turned the corner on this front. You know, a decade or so ago, they've on a bit since then, but they're still that kind of team in some regards when you think about the personnel they've got at both ends of the pitch. So they'll need to do that again. Unfortunately, Stoke are a very leaky side in general, and other sides won't be quite as forgiving. So yeah, hopefully the Tony Pulis effect hasn't kicked in just yet.
Stu, what do you make ahead of this game? Because, like we say, Huddersfield Town, it was an excellent performance against QPR at the weekend. Sheffield Wednesday still finding their feet under Tony Pulis, but you can never write them off, especially in Yorkshire derbies.
Yeah, I think the thing about Sheffield Wednesday finding their feet is, as with every Pulis team, the defensive organisation gets sorted pretty quickly. You know, I'm sure Dom will tell you, you know, in most of the games so far, they've been pretty hard to break down. it's the other end of the field they'll work on later on, sort of thing. So they'll come to Huddersfield set up to get a clean sheet, and anything on top of that really is a bonus. So it will be a challenge for Huddersfield to break that down, because they won't be under any they won't feel under any pressure to go gung ho at Huddersfield. They just won't entertain it if they don't have to. And as I say, as Don was saying, they do lack strikers, so they don't really have the confidence to do that anyway in some regards. So it will be a real test. I mean, one thing about Pulis teams is he does like his wingers as well. So he will try and get his, he will play with quick wingers. He'll test Pippa and Toffolo's, courage to attack them, because we know obviously the fullbacks are a big part of Huddersfield's attacking play.
And Dom, how was Barry Bannon's really key, isn't he, to this system, and under Tony Pulis especially, to try and have that style of play that he's trying to introduce when going forwards?
Yeah, he is. When Barry Bannon is at the top of his game, I still think that he's one of the best midfielders in this league. And it's interesting that Pulis has come in and has tweaked his position a little bit. For the last few years, what we've seen is Bannon playing in the sort of quarterback position, but Pulis actually wants him to get forward more, as he knows that that's where he's influential and he can pull the strings. He's got great left foot, as we've seen. He scored a couple of penalties so far this season, and really with his ability, he should score more goals. I think that's probably been the thing that's held him back and stopped him from playing regularly in the Premier League. Really, he's got so much talent. So yeah, from Town's perspective, they can all afford to give him lots of time and space on the ball, as he's going to be the one that I think will make things happen for Wednesday. But yeah, I think there'll be some good battles out wide. I expect Kadeem Harris and Adam Reach against Pippa and Toffolo. We know how good Toffolo and Pippa are going forward, and so it's a case of, can Reach and Harris, or Odebajo if he's selected there, can they pin them back and stop them bombing on? I think those are going to definitely be sort of key battlegrounds, definitely out wide.
Is the key here to stop Sheffield Wednesday attacking by shutting Bannon down? Is it as simple as that?
I don't think it's not quite as sort of cut and dry as that, I would say. They have Callum Patterson, who I think will break forward from midfield. Pulis, another change he made straight away was that he identified that he doesn't think that Callum Patterson is a centre forward, so he's dropped him deeper. And I do actually think that he'd be a handful in that position. He brings them a bit of physicality there. He's capable of scoring a goal from deep. And Josh Windass will be the one, I think, up front. And from Wednesday's point of view, they've got to get people in and around him so he's not isolated. And I think that's for Wednesday moving forward, to start scoring more goals. That's what they have to do. They have to get the wide men a bit further up, closer, to Josh Windass or whoever leads the line. But yeah, I mean that for Wednesday. I mean, the other thing to bear in mind is that there's a lot of doom and gloom around Hillsborough at the moment, but they do have an excellent recent record at Huddersfield. The last 8 visits haven't conceded a goal, so they can take heart from that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, Steve, but our last home win against Wednesday was 2011.
Yeah, sounds right, I think, yeah. See, notice Dom's grimace there as he delivers that mixed record about the Dom Howson derby. But, yeah, I mean, you wonder, we've talked about this before, I think, but you do wonder how much that sort of plays into players' minds, because, I doubt that Pippa or Naby Sarr could tell you the last time that Town won it. Beat Wednesday at home. I don't know how much of a factor it is, to be perfectly honest. Mind you, Wednesday will go with confidence, I suppose, because their squad is relatively, by championship terms, relatively settled. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's Town's home record this season has been probably a bit more mixed than they would like it to be. I think that the QPR game at the weekend was probably the first time that they've really had that sort of dominant victory on their own turf and not had those sort of anxious moments. And they've won by more than one clear goal. It's the first time they've won by more than a single goal this season. So they'll be desperate to continue that and try and get a bit of consistency. I think the last time they had 3 home wins back to back was February 2017. It's always 2017, by the way, for these things. But yeah, so that's a marker that they'll have put down for this game.
Yeah, I do think backing up Saturday will be a big thing for them. I mean, it was noticeable that, you know, one of the first things Toffolo said at full time on Saturday, I think, was how knackered he was. And, you know, it's a very energetic way that Huddersfield play. You know, they don't have the biggest squad either. So, I mean, we know how difficult it is to be consistent in the Championship at the best of times. But this season more than ever, it's going to be really difficult. And say it is a case of can they go again, and can they hit those heights they hit against QPR again? Because if they do, I'm sure they'll have a good day, but it's a lot easier said than done at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. Like after the Cardiff result, it was great to see that response that they got, and I think we've seen that this season, that when Town do have a bad game, they tend not to follow it up with another bad one. I think there's probably only been sort of one occasion where that's happened this season, but I think which was Preston and Birmingham. But they also need to make sure that they're following up good performances with other good ones, because they haven't really done that either. They've been very up and down. So again, another milestone that Corberán will be looking for his team to reach on Saturday. Tonight, I should say, not on Saturday.
It's just trying to get that consistency in the Championship, isn't it? You see everyone talking about it in the league. If you can string 2, 3, 4 wins together, you go flying at the table. Equally, you could lose 2, 3, 4 on the row, and then you're looking down rather than up. It's just one of those leagues, because of the fixture list and how congested it is. If you have a good week or a good week and a half, it looks completely different, doesn't it? It completely changes those mindsets.
Yeah, I mean, you look at sort of the form tables for up and down the division, and there's very, very few teams that are putting wins together. Cardiff are the only team at the moment who have had 3 wins on the bounce. And, you know, the fact that Town are 6 points outside the playoff places, despite having had results being, you know, sort of all over the place, win, draw, loss, I think tells you that this is a division that is even more unpredictable and even more up and down than it usually is.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Wednesday point of view, Dom, obviously, like you said, they're bottom of the table at the moment. If they didn't have the 6-point deduction, they'd be 20th. So it's not kind of all been doom and gloom. There are kind of building blocks there for them to move forwards.
There is big pressure on Wednesday, though, from the next sort of 4 matches coming up before we go into Christmas. They've had a tough run. There's no getting away from that. You know, you look at the games they've played recently, Swansea, Reading, Stoke, Norwich, you know, 4 teams that are inside that top 8, top 9. And so really it was going to be a bonus for Wednesday, whatever points they collected from that set of fixtures. But they will be looking at Town, Barnsley, Nottingham Forest, Coventry coming up. If they don't start getting some wins quickly, and Tony Pulis is 5 matches, you know, so he'd be desperate to get off the mark too, then the danger is that they're going to get cut adrift at the bottom. And so it's a vitally important period for Wednesday. You know, absolutely. You know, they've got to start racking up some wins pretty quickly, or all the sort of the hard work that they're trying to do to be more organised and defensively disciplined. It's all very well and good. They've got to be, you know, turning that into goals and turning that into victories.
I think, Adam, there's some similarities between where Wednesday are now and where Huddersfield were this time last year. You know, if you think the last December, Town had a lot of injuries, and it was a difficult time for them, obviously, having given everyone a head start. For Danny Cowley, it was really about just getting through to the January transfer window and then trying to make a difference. And I think that'll be exactly the same with Tony Pulis. Get as many points as you can now, get as solid as you can, and then look to add that attacking side then. And, you know, we saw with Town, you know, what a big difference some of those signings made, you know, like the top loan steam, and really changed things. Pulis will have his eyes on doing similar things in January, and say it's just a case of being as close to safety as possible, not getting cut adrift. when that January transfer window opens. Really,
I think the concern for Wednesday is that there's 30 matches to go, and realistically, they've got to win, I'd say, around a third of them and get draws. And when the team have only won 6 times in the whole of 2020, it's a losing culture set in, and they've got to somehow try and turn that around. And I agree with Stu that I think new faces will lift everybody in January, and it will be important for Wednesday to get the business done as early as they can. As we saw that with Town, the signings that they made in January, that's very true. But they have to still be in touching distance, for them to be able to then make a big, impact when we get to January.
Yes, it's one of those things. January is not very far away, but in terms of the number of points available between now and January, there is a lot. So you can't be complacent about it. And of course, the point Dom made, it's not like all these signings will arrive on January the 1st either. So you really need to get as much work in as possible. I remember Town beating Nottingham Forest at home this time last year. They need a couple of those results just to keep things ticking over, so that January isn't a waste of time, and players do actually want to come and join Sheffield Wednesday, because it doesn't look like a lost cause.
From this then, Steve, do you think it's a case of Huddersfield Town have to take the game to Sheffield Wednesday, really dominate them and try and use some of those attacking movements that we saw come to fruition against QPR?
Yeah, I think we know that Carlos isn't going to change the style massively from game to game. He'll make tweaks here and there. So he played a little bit more directly against QPR because they're a team that come at you and have that high press and the high line, and you put Carolighton a little bit deeper so that he was always the first ball out, rather than put him in the final third and having him as the last ball. So I'm sure there'll be a few more tweaks like that. I'll be interested to see if that slightly more direct approach continues in this game, or whether that was just something that was tailored towards QPR, because I know some people get a bit snobby about sort of long passes and things, but they can be very effective. There's nothing wrong with being direct, as we saw against QPR. But as you say, in the final third as well, you need that movement. I mean, Harry Toffolo's movement to both help create and score his goal against QPR was fantastic, and you had Fraser Campbell making a run on the other side as well to draw defenders away, which I know is something that Carlos has given credit to Fraser for doing before. So it's trying to find that fluency and trying to play through teams as well as around them, because we've found that if you try and go around too much, it becomes quite difficult to then get into the box.
Yeah. Some of those two-touch passes against QPR was absolutely breathtaking, wasn't it? Especially down the flanks. But it always came into the likes of Carroll, who you mentioned earlier, or Lewis O'Brien, and then the movement off the ball, the unselfish runs that the whole team were making. It was really eye-catching.
Yeah, and there was a bit of swapping between sort of Fraser and Lewis as well, which I think sort of bamboozled the QPR defence. I mean, it's worth saying that QPR defended really terribly at the weekend as well. They were very kind to Town, and I doubt that Sheffield Wednesday will be quite as forgiving as that. But nonetheless, it's good to see those movements, because there have been games and times in games this season where that hasn't happened. It's trying to find it sort of throughout the 90 minutes, and against QPR they particularly in the first half, they were doing it pretty much constantly, and they didn't really have an answer for them.
And one big thing, Stu, you mentioned earlier, injuries that Sheffield Wednesday have got at the minute. In terms of Town, obviously, we lost Christopher Schindler at the weekend. Carlos said he's waiting to get the scan results back on him before we know how long he's out for. Romany Critchlow's back in training. Alex Vallejo's back in training as well. But is this the time for Romani Edmonds-Green?
I think it possibly will be. We've seen him sort of very close the last couple of weeks with the injuries to Schindler and Stearman, and somebody's just got fit in time. But certainly one thing that you can't say about Carlos Corberán is that he's afraid to throw youngsters in. He does have belief in everyone in his squad. And, I saw Romany Critchlow play very well against Nottingham Forest. I gather Romani Edmonds-Green played well on his first start. I don't think he'll have any qualms about throwing him in. It'll be interesting to see. I asked him in the pre-match press conference before QPR if Stearman's injury might force him into the transfer market, and he was a little bit non-committal. But now Schindler's been added to that. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I don't think he'll be afraid to give a young player his chance. I think that's certainly one thing. He's been very strong on.
How impressed have you been with him, Steve? Obviously, you've seen him over a few games now. We've spoken in depth a little bit about him. Maybe we would have seen him in a little bit earlier this season if it wasn't for obviously the injury setbacks he had at the start of the year.
Yeah, Romani, this is, isn't it? Yeah, when we were out in Austria last summer 2019, there were two players who really caught the eye, and it was Lewis O'Brien and Romani Edmonds-Green. He from sort of the first moment we saw him, it's like, here's an intelligent defender. I think he got it wrong against Cardiff, but generally speaking, he knows when to step out of the defence. That was sort of the first thing I noticed about him was, if there's a ball coming over the top, he knows, and he's got a bit of pace about him as well, which is something that perhaps Town haven't had a lot of at centre back over the last couple of years. And he's able to use that and read the game, and he knows when he can get to the ball and when he can't. He's a young defender, so he's going to make mistakes as any young player does, and to be honest, as we've seen this season, as any senior player will do from time to time as well. But he had that loan spell at Swindon where the reports were exceptionally good. He won their player of the month at one point as well, and this was a team that was sort of top of League Two. And it's a big opportunity for him. And this is sort of the point of the squad policy that they've got, is that there are opportunities for players like Romani to come through when you get injuries. And I think out of sort of the crop of youngsters, he's right at that top of the list of players who you would back to have a successful senior career at this level or higher.
I think as well, it could be a good style of defender to play in this game. Against the more organised teams, when teams sit back, and we can expect Wednesday to often be in a bank of 4 and 5. If you've got a clever central defender who can step out and play passes and change the picture, that is the thing that's going to disorganise sides like Sheffield Wednesday. So it could be a good opportunity for him if he's able to grasp it.
How do you think, Dom? Obviously, we'll come on to this a little bit later, but Steve mentioned it. It's like the Dom Howson derby. But how do you think Rams will deal with like the physicality that Sheffield Wednesday have in their locker?
I think he should be all right, and I would expect that it'll be Windass up front. So he's not sort of a physical target man, or he doesn't really provide that point for Wednesday. And I think that's what Pulis will be looking to bring in January. And so, I think I agree with the guys that I think actually Sarr and Greens, they will be able to come out and bring the ball out from defence. So I would expect that they will get time on the ball. That I think it will be a low block. That's probably the setup and approach from Wednesday that they're going to look to contain, and then play on the counter attack with the pace and the directness that they've got with Kadeem Harris and Adam Reach. I expect that's how Wednesday will go about the business, and of course set plays. We know that that's been a weakness for Town over maybe the last 12 to 18 months. I'm sure that Tony Pulis, that's an area that he prides himself on, that he'd be looking to exploit as well tomorrow night.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for you, Dom, this, won't it? Obviously, Huddersfield Town fan, but reporting on Sheffield Wednesday.
Football's the winner. That's what I say every time. So when you come around to asking for a score prediction, I'll be sitting nicely on the fence, going for a draw. But it was particularly practical, should we say? Yeah, covering the playoff matches. It's not. I've got to say, I don't particularly enjoy them that much. I'm quite glad when they're over.
I can imagine. I can imagine that Steve gives you a bit of stick as well.
Yeah, he loves nothing more than giving a bit of stick. So it's fine. He's not going to be there tomorrow because he can't be bothered. So, if someone's got to step up.
Just finally, guys, where do we see the kind of key areas, the key battles being in this match? What do you think could win it for Huddersfield Town?
think what Dom said about going through those flanks are going to be really important. I think we're going to be up and down all game from both sets of wingers and fullbacks.
Yes, Stu, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, I think Town's fullbacks will be the key. You know, they're going to have two. Whoever Pulis selects, they're going to have two quick wingers up against them, and it's about them having the courage to get forward and the intelligence to get forward in the right way. You know, because it'll be congested in the middle of the field. They'll have to pick their runs right. But I think they could be, you know, they could be the key players for Town.
Yeah, I echo what the boys have just said. I think patience is going to be the key for Town, really, in trying to get the result, because, Wednesday will try and make life very difficult for them. And if they get their nerves, I think the first goal is the cliche, but I do think the first goal is going to be crucial tomorrow. I think it really is, in that, if Wednesday gets it, then it gives them something, platform to build on. And will the nerves maybe kick in for Wednesday? And that again, if they're in sort of with 15 minutes to go, if they were leading, we've seen it that they've thrown away leads and not been able to capitalise on that. Your Town, I think, have to pray really on maybe sort of the edginess that, with Wednesday out of form, struggling for results. I think that's where patience is going to be hugely important.
One thing and Dom will have a view on this, but I think it's a lot less fragile a Wednesday side than the last time the sides met. I think at times in the second half of last season, if they conceded one, the roof would come in. We probably saw that as recently as against Rotherham United in October. But I think under Pulis now, I don't think there's that sense that one goal will automatically bring two. I think there's a bit more to them now defensively.
Definitely.
It was an odd game, the one in was it July? Because it was 0-0, but it could easily have been sort of 2-2. It was quite end to end. So, I think probably Pulis would want things to be a little bit more controlled and contained than that. But yeah, I mean, it could be an entertaining game, this one.
Fingers crossed it is, guys. Thank you very much for helping us preview the game. Huddersfield Town fans, if you're a season card holder, then you can watch the game on iFollow HTAFC for free. The game is also on Sky Sports Red Button. And if you haven't got Sky and you're not a season card holder, then you can purchase a match pass for £10. Thank you very much for watching.